Give my arm a little rest after that. I got books behind me now, so you know that I know what I'm talking about. Are you new? Do you not know what the hell you're doing? Do you enjoy just putting an apple and a piece of cheese in a backpack and just going out on a walk for like hours, having no idea where the heck you're going? You could be the fool. Hi, everybody. I'm Taylor Ellis, the creator of the Ellis Deck Tarot and the Tarot of the Starbound Phantasia. And today we are talking about numero zero, the Fool. The Fool card gets the air element. And there's a few ways to think about that. I first thing that comes to my mind is like it just goes anywhere that the wind blows. It's and it's gone, or you know, it doesn't really have a committed direction. The minute that wind changes, it's like, whoo, what was that? Um, Another way is to think, well, you know, the fool is up on that cliff, and that's up in the air. That's he's up there. He's and you know, lastly, and this is something that people assign to water, but it really works for air too, is that, you know, when you put it into a container, it's the shape of that container. The fool is kind of a chameleon, can kind of fit in anywhere. But once it's out of that container again, it is right back to being the old smooth brain fool. Just, you know, still has its own ideas about everything. It's just going to go right back to doing whatever it wanted to do in the first place. A lot of times I'll consult websites or um, just really confident bloggers, um, or you know, I Ching experts on you know, which tarot card responds to which I Ching hexagram. And for the Fool, I don't feel like I need it. I don't think that they fit exactly anyway, and I've said that before. And I think that, you know, you're gonna get personal opinions from different people depending on their experience. I don't think you can be an expert on how to compare apples and oranges. You know, you just have an opinion on what goes with what. And with the Fool, I think that 56, the Wanderer, is the best definition for me of kind of what you need to think about as a Fool. The trigram arrangement is fire over mountain. So you could think of the Fool as like this little flame, just this little spark of life, and there they are on top of the mountain. They're just looking down, and you know, how'd they get up there? You know, what are they doing? But they this hexagram, you know, basically tells you, you know, kind of when you're traveling, there's certain rules you want to keep in mind. You know, they kind of range from like keep your nose clean, you know, don't get involved in other people's business, be a good guest, be grateful, um, keep your wits about you, and just you know, no matter where you go, there you are. Astrology and the Fool is another thing that's not exact. The first thing that comes to mind is that the Fool doesn't have an astrological correspondence. It's the zero. It's the potential before the universe. You know, before there even were planets or stars or anything, there was that Fool energy, that you know, moment before the Big Bang. So how could you assign anything to that? And then just again going back to like that wild card of the Fool is like, you know, maybe one day the Fool's vibing like a Sag, maybe another day the Fool is coming across like the planet Jupiter. It's the Fool. But more recently, with modern astrology and the outer planets, the Fool gets assigned Uranus, as it corresponds to air. And Uranus does make pretty good sense for the Fool, because Uranus is kind of about awakenings and revolutions, rebellion, new ways of thinking. And the Fool is definitely your outside the box guy. The Fool is you know, think about like a group of people, and they are all trying to put their heads together to fix this situation. Like if you've ever been like new to a job and there's some sort of taboo or something about like figuring out how to fix a problem at that job at work, and you come in and you know you don't have like the, oh well, we've always done it this way, or you know, don't use orange because Bob hates orange and it really makes him crazy and flip desks over, and you say, well, why don't we just paint this wall orange? And people go, that fixes everything. The wall just needed to be orange. And sorry, I don't have a better example than that. I haven't worked in an office in over a decade, but uh, there you go. There you have it. Uranus. All right, let's have a look at the Ellis deck. Right here in this card, in this very card in my very hand, we have the Fool taken off at night, not even waiting for the light of day to start that journey. There's no timing in the Fool's brain at all. They just um, they just go when they go. So if we look closely at the Fool, we see that they kind of have the outfit of maybe like somewhere between like a bard or like a jester, kind of the type of character that's not necessarily taken seriously in society. They're doing their thing, and you know it's valuable to them, and they don't really worry too much about what anyone else is thinking of it. He's got a little bag sling over his shoulder. In that bag is probably a couple of things, not really a whole lot. The Fool is traveling light. um, this is kind of like the idea, like you're not going to be taking a ton of stuff with you onto this next venture, whatever this next thing is. It's almost a clean slate. You know, you might have your dental floss in there, and that's about it. The Fool's Dog is right there. The Fool's Dog is not just the publisher of the wonderful Ellis Deck Tarot app, but the Fool's Dog is both representative of like the loyal friend and then also our instincts. You know, it's like for this Fool, the loyal friend is like, "Hey, man, don't go," and the Fool's like, "No, I've got to do this for me. This is just part of my story, and I've got to go." And at the same time, it's kind of the instinct being like, "Hey, are you sure you want to do this?" You know, and just um kind of letting you know it might be one of those times to ignore your instincts, but you know, depending on the situation, it could also be like, hey, you are being a fool. You are not listening to your gut, and it is right there. But I would really, you know, consult the surrounding cards before drawing either conclusion as to what that dog is doing. But we see he's on this cliff, and if we look towards the where his back is turned to a dead tree, and so that tree is something that's not bearing any fruit at this point. It doesn't have any leaves on it. It's no longer shelter from the sun or anything like that, and that's saying like that the past is gone to the Fool. Again, we have that clean slate energy coming up. There's nothing nourishing behind him. He's got to go forward into this journey, and then what we have in front of the Fool is kind of unlimited destination. If we look at the bottom, we see, oh, maybe the Fool's wanting to go, you know, through the forest, explore the wilds, the deciduous trees, the fun furry animals, you know, whatever crazy, you know, cabins and old wizards might live down there to tell them all kinds of fun things about their journey. Or maybe they're going up into the mountains, and you know, they want to, you know, they see what things are like from that cliff, but what about that cliff over there? You know, what's going on? You know, what's that viewpoint look like? That, you know, the search for a new vantage point, or maybe they're looking for the crazy old mountain hermit or hermitess to tell them, you know, their wisdom as per, you know, what they've learned from, you know, living in the mountains for, you know, decades. And or maybe, you know, off they want to get off to outer space. They're looking at the stars. Maybe they want to know what lies beyond, and you know, um, they've got no plan on how to get there, but all they know is that forward is the way to go. Nextly, we have the Starbound Phantasia Fool. And he's on kind of a different journey than the other guy. And the first fool was a little bit more like the start of an RPG, like the hero beginning the journey off into the wilds. And then this guy is a little bit more of the psychonaut Terrence McKenna type. He's tripping out there. We see he's got stars in his eyes and stars going on all around him, and he's like, he's really really getting into it, and really not totally aware of his surroundings. And that kind of goes back to that Wanderer, the 56 in the I Ching. Like, you gotta kind of think about this stuff. But he's also kind of got this sort of like entertainer outfit on. Probably doesn't fit into like a 9 to 5 role, is not going to be taken seriously by, Joe tucked in shirt. And good news is he does not care. But he's kind of spinning around, but he's doing that on the edge of a cliff. And the cliff itself is like black and gray, and that's to the fool, like the mundane world, the physical world is just not his thing. He's wanting to not pay attention to that. He's hoping there's more to life than this. Um, maybe this fool has taken a little something, or maybe he's just spun around in circles until he's dizzy. But he's in this state where he's, trying to induce this vision. He's wanting to go on this vision of the Starbound Phantasia. He's wanting to find the star. He's like, what, the stars are out there. He sees them, and he's like, how do I get to them? And but at the same time, he's about to fall off this cliff. And so the dog in this one. Also dressed like a fool. He's like that friend that's guilty by association, but he's the instincts being ignored that are like, what are you doing? You're dancing around at the edge of this cliff. Are you crazy? Like, and he's like I said, he's like, he's just having a blast there, and he's doing this on like the backdrop of this pink magenta kind of like psychic realm. And so it's like this journey is non-material. This is something. It's almost like a head trip, but at the same time, what this really represents, outside of some kind of psychedelic experience, is you know uh entering into the world with a like I think, as especially like if you've kind of experienced a lot of life, there can be this sort of disenchantment that happens. But the fool comes back in to remind us to kind of re-enchant ourselves with the world, but exists with the warning that it's like, hey, don't forget the lessons you've learned. Don't forget that you can be like, hey, stuff isn't real, birds aren't real, but hey, gravity's real. Gravity will rock your ass. My favorite philosopher, Alan Watts, used to say, "A fool that persists in his folly will become wise." And I think that is really, really important when we read with the fool, because the fool kind of exists in two modalities. The fool exists as like the neophyte, like the beginner that doesn't know anything about anything. And then we kind of go along on our journey, and we pick up knowledge, and we learn a lot about the world and the way the world works, and we might become an expert in or develop a technical skill or a craft. And then we sort of revere ourselves as an expert, or like a craftsman. But I think that there's something that happens where the craftsman becomes the artist, where we have like I think like the fool goes on this journey that kind of ends with the world card, if we're looking at the major arcana in a linear way, or kind of in that circular way. And but what happens after that is that they're still the fool. Like they realize, hey, I don't know everything. And it's kind of that not knowing everything that's what lets the craftsman become the artist. The craftsman goes, well, now I have all these skills to work with, but I don't, I have to have this open mind if I'm going to create, if I'm going to do something that hasn't been done before, uh, that requires that playful mindset of the fool. Otherwise, it's like you would just be like a Mona Lisa painting factory because you knew that the Mona Lisa was a successful painting. So therefore, all paintings must be the Mona Lisa. You go, no, I'm gonna get funded by the CIA and be Jackson Pollock and throw shit on the ground, and that's going to be our, well, I'm no disrespect if you like Jackson Pollock, but maybe a little bit more like I'm going to explore the depths of things people are afraid to get into, and you're going to be HR Giger, or you're like I'm going to play with what if architecture, dimension, and gravity were just negotiable, and you're going to be MC Escher. um, but my ultimate point is hit like and subscribe. I'd love it if you do. um just kidding, but anyway, yeah, that would be really cool. And if you like my art, if you want to buy either of my tarot decks, you can go over to illustrations.net or illustrations.bigcartel.com. Those links will be at the bottom. And if there's anything that you'd like to have me do a reading on here on the channel, just leave a comment down below. If you think I left something out, or you think my ideas are totally wrong, just leave a comment down below. And other than that, happy reading.